You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Rogue. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Coming up on the brew session, Jinnie Fay is having a party and everyone is invited. It's time to find out the truth about cats and dogs, with new brews for token decks in Modern and Pioneer. That's all coming up on Faithless Brewing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show! Hello and welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I am your host, Dan Schriever, also known as Cave Dan Online, and I am joined today by my guy from Argentina. You know him as Moored to Light. It's Emmy Sagasti. Emmy, welcome.
Heyo! Hey Dan, how's it going? Really excited to be here for these sort of episodes. I think it's likely my favorite thing to discuss for like an hour. How to make bad decisions.
Today's a fun one. Today we are talking about the winning card from our monthly project, which if you have been listening to the last few episodes, you know we've got a new project going up with the CRM Visions gang and the people in our Faithless Brewing Discord community, in which we pick a card every month, spend a few weeks iterating on it, testing out different versions, and trying to arrive at something mildly playable.
Yeah. Sometimes we just reach mildly, sometimes we reach something amazing, and there's no way to know until we go through a really shit ton of bad decisions in the way.
And the best part about it for me is the voting, because people in our Discord get to nominate the cards, and then we have like a week-long period where everyone votes, argues over like this or that thing, makes impassioned pleas for why this or this card is...
To convince their fellows about, guys, this is the way. We gotta make dogs and kittens. And sometimes easy arguments are the best arguments.
So we already announced the winner this time. Jinnie Fay, Jetmir second, if you look at the episode title. No surprise there. But, Emmy, walk us through how this vote went.
So, there's one card that got particularly close. That was Shiggy Wiggy's choice. Not only the one he voted, but also the one he nominated. Which is a bit of nepotism if you want to talk about it, but I'm not going to get into the details. Reality Cheap got number second by only 4 votes. This voting got a lot of people in. Around almost 70 people vote?
69 responses, yeah, which is, I think, the highest we've had.
Excellent, got down to say the number. Nice. Going on.
All right, you got me.
Jinnie Fay. You said fun last episode, and I got you to say the nice number this one. I'm getting better by it. Jinnie Fay got 32 votes, closely followed by Reality Cheap. This one was not as close as a nail-biter as the last voting, which was minutes away from being a 3-way tie. This time, Jinnie Fay was the clear winner, followed by Reality Cheap, which is a card no one has actually dug a lot into besides Cheap. I played one of his brews once, and the card is insane when going off. But besides the random play in Esper Hammers, I have not seen much of the card on its own.
It does feel underexplored for that reason, because it had a brief run of success in the blue-white hammer decks. People sort of understood, okay, this is an acceptable card on the modern power level, maybe, but it hasn't really found any other homes. Blue-white Stoneblade, I don't really see it there as part of the Stoneforge package. Jiggy Wiggy tried it in his Underworld Breach combo deck, and he said it ultimately wasn't quite the right fit.
It's hard to find a deck that has the capability of equipping it, a cheap enough mana cost in your deck, and enough creatures that you can A, play it, and B, get enough out of it. That's where the balance has been tough to find.
The last time that I tested this card was in a Bant Tezzeret Betrayer of Flesh brew that David had drawn up, where we were trying to use Tezzeret Static to make the equip cheaper, and then we were trying to crack a bunch of clues off Tireless Tracker. It was a good time. I think David's excited about this card. So we might just do like a one-off segment on it. I know this is going to be Jinnie Fay month, but some of these next runners up were also very, very interesting.
Exactly. So the plan will be try to give them a segment or an episode to discard and the to come. Third card, pretty close to the number 4th, is Moderation, which is the card I'm personally most excited about to work around a bit. Just because it's not only an underexplored card, the only person that has explored it got a 5-0 and it's one of the members of our Discord. Hey, Courier. A bit of a explanation of why it's the thing I love the most about Magic is trying to transform a downside into an upside. Just look at one of my favorite cards, which is Wasteland Strangler.
Yeah, I suppose you could think of Moderation that way. Moderation, enchantment, Modern Horizons 2, 1 white, blue. It says you can only play one spell per turn. In exchange for living with that drawback, you get to draw a card whenever you play a card. Which, if you're an ancient boomer like myself, we call that, recycle, essentially.
Wait,
or null profusion, if you prefer. I'm just saying this to throw Emmy off. He's like, what are you talking about?
I know neither of those cards. Unless Null Profusion is the bad card that was played in the sideboards of Mono Black Cabal. Is it? Yes, it is. I have seen this card. This card was played against me a few days ago.
You've played against Null Profusion in the last week?
It's in the sideboard of Black Offers.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, that's the Planar Chaos color shifter version of the original card Recycle from Tempest or Stronghold or something, just like an ancient card. The ability to draw a card whenever you play a card is so powerful that that card costs 6 mana and forced you to have a hand size of 2. And skip your draw step.
This art is hideous.
It was a different time, Emmy.
This is like this.
This is beloved artists Phil and Kaya Folio.
This is Stasis level of arts.
It's the folios. You can't argue with the folios. They're the classic artists. What is my point? The text, whenever you play a card, draw a card, is just insane. Now, obviously, Recycle counts lands and Moderation does not. But even so, it's such an insanely powerful effect. This is a card that Sam Black worked on a ton when he was consulting on Modern Horizons 2, and he wrote a very interesting article about it back when Star City still had content, detailing all the different iterations they tested and trying to tweak the knobs to make it not too broken. What they come up with, what they ultimately printed, is maybe not quite powerful enough unless you really work for it. And I think we want to work for it.
Yeah. There's also the fact that the number of cards that are spells that are not actually spells has increased over the years. Timeless Dragons, Flirtle, alongside similar effects, has made it so you can actually double, triple cast without actually double, triple casting.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's essential in cards like this to work, because I don't care if I have 10 cards in my hand. If my opponent is going to double spell in return and I'm stuck playing one spell, maybe that Mirror Shell Crab cycling ability is not that bad.
Yeah, so I'm spending my mana on a channel effect, and then I'm pitching a Solitude and drawing a card.
Exactly.
Like that.
As I reach the late game where I can actually start casting a Solitude plus pitching a card and slowly generating increasingly card advantage. And then I just effectively bounce my Moderation when I have enough mana and spells.
So I think this would be also an interesting card to do a little exploration of.
Exactly.
Finally, closely behind Moderation in 4th place.
Fourth, but not least at all, the card that I have never seen a member of our Discord so devoted to and put so many hours in. We have First Renegator Devotion to Mausoleum Secrets. And did he put in the hours?
Yeah, I gotta hand it to First Renegator. I wasn't expecting much from Mausoleum Secrets, but within days of him submitting the card, he's like, I already 5-0'd with it. I've got 8 more brews. And indeed, he posted what I thought were just going to be deck lists, but they turned out to be little mini essays. Here's a concept, and here's 3-layer thesis on how it compares to existing archetypes and what you gain from Mausoleum Secrets, which is 1 in a black instant speed demonic tutor, but it only gets black cards and it only gets a CMC less than or equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard. That's the undergrowth mechanic. So it seems like it's got a lot of restrictions, but restrictions, as we know, they breed creativity, and in First Renegator's case, they breed some insane brews and some slick 5-0s.
They breed insanity and devotion.
Yeah, so I think if only just to acknowledge the magnum opus that First Turn Negator has produced working on this card. I know he's working on like a giant article that I hope we'll see someday. I think it would be interesting to spend an episode on Mausoleum Secrets as well.
Exactly. Show some devotion back.
Yeah. And finally, in 5th place, a surprise finish getaway card. This card was like way behind in the voting, but I think David, I don't know if he had something to do with this, but he promised the people that he had a getaway card Brew that win or lose, he's going to show us that deck. He's going to play a league with it. So you'll be hearing more from Getaway Car at some point.
I'm just surprised Getaway Car got ahead of cards like Ifrit Flame Painter. That seems so much more insane. Like from a fun aspect of the game, right?
I don't know. I mean, bouncing Thraben Inspectors and attacking for 4 is also fun, right?
Value. How can I say no to value?
Exactly. So, another great round of voting. This one had a clear winner. Jinnie Fay, a worthy champion, because as we started to research this card, man, like our notes right now are enormous. We have so many cards to consider.
We have notes and bad ideas for days, but we don't have days. Yeah. We have hours.
Yeah, so let's just, without further ado, let's get into it. Our card of the month. This is going to be our initial attempt to explore what Jinnie Fay is capable of, think through like what's good, what's bad, some things to avoid. We've got, what, like 5 or 6 deck lists we want to propose?
Yeah.
Just to kick things off.
Yeah. To get us, like, the more than specific deck lists, what we are trying to show are the concepts we're trying to follow behind each of them. Don't think like these 60 or 40 cards are set in stone. They're rather the concept behind what we're trying to dig into.
Exactly. All right, tell us about Jinnie Fay Jetmir's second.
So, Jinnie Fay, the weird cost from New Capenna, which is triple green, or Naya, or red and double green, or double green and white, because why not make a simple mana cost? 3 mana, 3/3 elf druid. If you would create 1 or more tokens, you may still create that many 2/2 green cats, or that many 3/1 green creatures with vigilance, dog creatures with vigilance. So it gives you the capability of transforming any token you create into a 2/2 with haste or a 3/1 with vigilance.
So the Cabaretti, if I understand the lore correctly, this is like the party guilds, or it's not a guild, it's a crime family, but they're also like classy partiers.
Exactly.
Somehow that involves cats and dogs. I'm not totally sure how, but Jinnie Fay is like strolling in.
It includes pets.
It includes pets. Okay. They rent out like a cat cafe to have their gala.
Exactly. So she just transforms the random citizens into pets.
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
I don't understand what's happening.
Not only that, but most of the Cabaretti cards in the guild, like in the draft and such, make citizens, and the idea is to transform those citizens into pets.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right flavor-wise, but it's what it does gameplay-wise.
There's a treasure token theme, but that's more in the Riveteers colors.
Yeah. Like, to know what the card does in this set, what each guild does, you have to look at the card that cycles, the one that filters your mana.
Uh-huh.
That tends to be the most show of proof. And this one literally makes a citizen. On ETB. Like, all the set, all the readers is around citizen tokens and way to pump them up, or, well, transform them into other stuff.
Okay. So it's like a furry kind of party or something. I don't know. I don't understand this.
It's a furry party. Okay, now it's a fury party, but we are not playing fury. It's a fury. Fury? How do you say?
Fury party.
How do you add a stick on R?
Furry. You have to roll the R. I can't quite do it. Furry.
Like, I can do it in Spanish. It's furry. But the furry doesn't make sense in English. It's how do you distinguish fury from furry? Oh, it's okay. I think I got it.
You just did it. There you go.
Okay, furry from fury. Okay, so we have a 3 mana 3/3 with no ETB. That's a furry. What do we need this furry to do in order to be enough?
I mean, that's a great question. In one sense, all we're doing is replacing a bad token with a better token.
Exactly.
And how much of an upgrade that is depends on how bad was the original token and how good is a 2/2 green cat with haste or a 3/1 green dog with vigilance. So we've got a bunch of cards highlighted we're going to talk through as cards to consider. But I think before we do, I just want to make sure that we understand exactly how this card works. Jinnie Fay operates in a corner of the rules that I only have like a loose understanding of, namely replacement effects. So I think it might be worthwhile to just sort of lay it all out there. It will affect some of the interactions we're going to talk about. So just for starters, the mana cost, as Emmy mentioned, is 3, but that uses red-green hybrid, white-green hybrid, or green. So you can play triple green, you can play Naya colors, you can do red-green-green, green-green-white. It's up to you. You should be a green deck. You can play any brew you want as long as it's green.
As long as you're playing green, it can be Boros, Naya, or Selesnya.
This is technically compatible with Giganta the Wellspring. These are all different symbols. And you can also get a maximum cost reduction off Bard class, which is something that I'm like somewhat interested in doing. There's a few interactions we'll get to that I imagine having a Jinnie Fay in play could like make my Bard class deck a little bit better. So that's kind of cool. But all right, that's just the mana. Let's talk about the replacement effect. It says, if you would create one or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 3/1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. The first thing to know about replacement effects is if you have multiples happening at the same time, you get to choose in which order they are applied. The biggest thing is Academy Manufactor, one of the best cards with any kind of token strategy. Academy Manufactor says if you would get a clue, a food, or a treasure, you instead get one of each. So that's that instead clause, right? That tells you you're in a replacement effect.
Exactly.
So let's say you had a Manufactor and a Jinnie Fay. You would want to apply the Manufactor first to make sure you're getting 3 tokens, and then Jinnie gives you 3 of either cats or dogs. Same thing with Chatterfang. Chatterfang gives you an extra squirrel or extra squirrels, depending on how many tokens you're making. You can do that first and then have Jinnie Fay upgrade all of those tokens into cats or dogs, which is nice.
Yeah. Also, it is worth mentioning, all the tokens, if they are created at the same time, have to be the same. You cannot get, like, out of a Chatterfang, you can't get, like, 1 dog and 1 cat. You either get both cats or both dogs.
Yeah, and I did not understand this at first, but it has to do with the phrase, if you would create one or more. So Jinnie Fay just checks the entire instance of token creation, and then you say, okay, to that entire token making event,
exactly,
you get to choose A, yes or no, right? It's optional. You can just keep the original tokens if you want. And B, like, okay, I do want to replace, do I want cats or dogs? And they have to either be all cats or all dogs. There's no mixing and matching.
Yes. And then the messy part.
Yeah.
Because it never can get easier.
I think everything up to this part has been clear enough. The problem is that cards that make tokens are not templated in a consistent way, right? There are thousands of cards that create tokens, and I went through Scryfall, like at each mana cost, looking for cards, and they're just like so many. There's literal thousands of cards that Jinnie applies to. And what you have to do to understand how Jinnie will affect them is like read the original card very, very carefully and figure out how much of the ability is creating the token and defining that token's characteristics, and how much is just like additional stuff that also happens to the token. Jinnie Fay will only replace the token making event with a cat or a dog, and the rest of the original effect will continue to happen. What do I mean? Well, let's say you have a card that says, okay, create, a goblin with haste and first strike, then that goblin, sacrifice at end of turn. Right? So Jinnie Fay would see, okay, I'm creating a token and it's got haste and first strike. All of that gets replace that with a cat or a dog. But then the rest of the effect, which is sacrifice at end of turn, would still happen.
I think the key aspect is, like, let's look at the best example that you have found, which I completely agree in, which is Goblin Rabblemaster versus Legion Warboss.
Yes. So read these cards and explain to me what I get with Jinnie.
Exactly. Goblin Rabblemaster, the first paragraph says, other goblins have to attack every single turn, we don't care about it. The second paragraph is the one we care about. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token with haste. So that card specifically, Rabblemaster is creating a token that always has haste. If you were gonna look at the token card, like the one that came in the booster or such, it would be a 1/1 goblin with haste. That means the token itself has the haste, it is not given by any additional properties. And that's why it gets to attack that turn. When Jinnie Fay creates the token, when it replaces, you just get a 2/2 cat or a 3/1 dog. It doesn't have the additional haste provided by the Goblin Rabblemaster, because it's not giving it to the card it's creating a card that has haste. I don't know if that's clear.
I think so. And it's a cute interaction here is that because you're getting a cat or a dog, not a goblin, your new token does not have to attack from that first clause on the Rebel Master.
On the other hand, you have Legion Warboss, which reads, at the beginning of combat in your turn, same as the other, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. As you can say, the 1/1 red creature token doesn't have that has haste, which means it's just creating a regular token. And secondly, that token gains haste until the end of turn and attacks this combat if able. That means the token it's now creating doesn't have haste on its own, the card doesn't have haste, but the Legion Warboss ability is providing it with not only haste, but it's forcing it to attack. Which means, with Rebel Master you can get a dog and it isn't forced to attack, and with Warboss you can get a dog that has haste, but is forced to attack. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. So in general, cards that say create a token, period, and then separately give them haste, those tend to work better with Jinnie Fay.
Yeah.
Like the Warboss here. So you're making some token, and then once you're done making the token, you grant it haste. And then that will still get haste with Jinnie Fay.
Exactly. That's the biggest difference. You have to try and find the different aspect in what is the token being created and what is being provided to the token by the token creator.
And if you're not sure, like imagine what would happen if I cloned this token, right? Like how much of those properties would be on the clone copy and how much would not be, right? Some values are like not copyable. For example, coming into play tapped and attacking, right? That's not actually something that would be written on the card. That would just be like a separate status, I guess, part of the creation.
What helps it the most to think about it is try to picture what specific token it's creating, right? Like, because the token in Rebel Master and Warboss is not the same. One is a goblin with haste, and the other is a goblin without haste. Like, the physical token, the card that would come in the booster. Try to picture that and just think, okay, that's replaced with a dog. Now what happens?
I like that. That's very clean. All right. Do what Emmy said, not what I said. Buy one of each copy of every token that was printed in boosters, just in case.
And just replace with a dog when needed. And that's specifically gonna haste when we start thinking about weird tokens, like food tokens or 0/0 tokens, where you really gotta start making some transitive changes in your mind to figure out how it's gonna work.
So now that we think we understand how it works, what are some of the things we should be trying to do with Jinnie Fay? What are some of the best tokens to upgrade into cats and dogs?
Well, non-creature tokens always come cheaper than creature ones, right? Because you will never have something like Thriving Inspector create a 1/1, it creates a clue. So the worst tokens per se in mana cost and the easier to make tends to be food, treasures, and clues. And this just gets exponentially bigger with or blood tokens. But the problem with blood is it doesn't work with Academy Manufacturer, which is the one that tends to just go off the handle with this sort of stuff. So non-creature cheap to make tokens, the cycle of food, treasure, clue, and blood are likely the best. Because just imagine if Thriving Inspector made a 3/1 instead of a clue. Or a 2/2 haste.
I am imagining that, and I have to say I'm intrigued. I get a 1/2 and a 3/1 or a 2/2 haste.
Exactly, or a 3/1 with vigilance that fights perfectly to the board.
Volder and Epic here also seems attractive. Exact same thing, right? A 1/1, get a damage, get a 2/2 haste.
Exactly. So cheap to make artifacts tend to be always those. Then you have 0/1 artifacts, for example from Kalnihar Garden or stuff like that, which aren't that easy to come by. There are not of tokens that produce them or cards that produce them. You have the 0/0s, which I can only think of one playable card that makes 0/0 tokens.
Yeah, 0/1s are pretty rare. 0/0s, Living Weapon comes to mind. I think any Living Weapon card will make a 0/0 germ.
Yeah.
So you could replace that 0/0 germ with a 3/1, or actually a 2/2 haste cat. Actually sounds kind of interesting. Imagine a Batterskull. Instead of a 0/0 germ, I get a 2/2 haste cat. Attach that to the Batterskull. Attack for 6. That's pretty good, actually.
6/6. That's the dream now. Turn 3, Jinnie Fay, cast Batterskull.
Yeah.
Then you have the Fractals.
Yeah, Fractals. Those are also 0/0s, Fractals.
Yeah.
Amass makes a 0/0, although weirdly, the extra counters from Amass
can only go on
be put on zombies.
Yeah.
So you won't get to actually put the counters on the zombie token.
No, it doesn't have. I think it's even weirder. It doesn't have to go on a zombie.
Amass is a very strange mechanic. Like, first it tries to put counters on a zombie, and then if it can't, if you don't have a zombie, it creates
that's the key.
a zombie.
It isn't a zombie. It looks for an army.
Oh, my mistake. Okay. It first tries to put counters on an army. That's so weird.
Exactly. That's what I was. You need to have an army creature, not a zombie creature.
Okay.
Like, if you look at the mechanic itself, it literally reads put +1/+1/+1 counters on an army you control.
Interestingly, if you had like Dreadhorde Invasion is the card you'd probably consider here, right? This is the Amass version of Bitter Blossom. If you had that with Jinnie Fay, every time the Dreadhorde Invasion checked to see if you have an army, you'd be like, no, you don't have one. You get a zombie army. And instead of getting a zombie army, you would get like a cat or something. And then every turn, because you still don't have a zombie army, you get another token. So that's like kind of works. Except if you don't cast Jinnie Fay in a timely fashion and you end up creating your first zombie army, like it no longer works. You just end up amassing counters.
And you can have any shapeshifter in your deck. Any changeling is an army.
So maybe not Amass. What about like decayed tokens? Decayed is kind of interesting. Those come pretty cheap.
And those come almost as cheap as the Fruit Treasure tokens. Those come really easily. You have the 2-mana creature that creates one every end step.
Jadar, Ghoulcaller of Nephalia.
Yeah. Why do you remember the full name? Like, just Jadar would have been enough for any normal being. Or the Ghoulcaller, but Ghoulcaller of Nephalia.
Do people know these cards? Like, I honestly don't know. Like, if I'm assuming too much familiarity with cards on the average person listening to this cast, or if I'm assuming not enough.
You're assuming a weird point, because I assume everybody that knows it as Jadar.
Well, it's not just that. Let's say you have to look it up. Like, do you know how to spell Jadar? Like, we all pronounce it differently because these are made up names. It's like, can you find Jadar? Maybe you can, but if I spell it out, maybe that will make it a little easier to find. That was my thought process.
The Ghoulcaller of Nephalia. Okay, makes sense.
And I also just want to like show off that I know the full name.
Okay, that's where it goes. Can you say Asmo now for us?
We got a bunch of Asmo decks coming up.
Perfect. So Jadar, it's a 2-mana 1/1 every end step. If you don't have a creature with decayed, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature with decayed. The thing is, these tokens, these dogs and cats, won't have the decay aspect of it, so you just get a new cat or a new dog every end step. Likely a new dog.
Yeah. That intrigues me. I mean, same with like Rotten Reunion is a card I've played before. Startle's okay. Papa Stitcher, like, I mean, you can get a decayed zombie pretty cheaply.
Yeah.
And if those suddenly become like real creatures, that might be worth exploring.
Mm-hmm. So
we've named like crappy tokens so far. What we haven't really talked about is like 1/1 tokens or 1/1 flying tokens. Once you start getting into that, like, is it worth it?
The thing about 1/1s is that they are the easiest tokens to come by. Like, there's no card on MTG that's like, raise the alarm. You don't have 2 mana, make 2 clues, right? Wait, you have 2 mana. Wait.
We have Wave Sifter. Yeah.
Not only we have Wave Sifter, we have... Yeah, but the thing is, we need them to have a failsafe. Like, that's the point. Yes, we have... What's the 1 mana card? We have Hard Evidence, which would just be amazing with Jinnie Fay because it's 1 mana, 6 power. But the thing against Raise the Alarm is that if you don't have Jinnie Fay, it's an unplayable card. While something like Raise the Alarm is bad, but it's at least gonna affect the board. So 1/1s, although weaker with Jinnie Fay, are much stronger on its own, right? In most scenarios.
I suppose so. Yeah, I guess so.
So that's why a lot of these builds will either go for the maximize Jinnie Fay and find ways to make sure that the cards around it make sense, like so we have additional payoff besides Jinnie Fay, or make sure the deck works on its own, and when it has Jinnie Fay, it gets powered up. Those I think are the 2 key routes we are gonna face when we start brewing with it. Do we make a playable deck that with Jinnie Fay is better, or do we play a deck that requires a payoff like Jinnie Fay, alongside others, and with them, it's amazing.
All right, so I've gone through Scryfall. I've narrowed this down to just like 100 cards. And of those, we're only going to talk about like, I don't know, a dozen
20?
20 maybe.
Yeah.
Just cards I'll mention to maybe just get the juices flowing. We don't have decks for all these, but these are just cards that seem like they play really well with Jinnie. They get a meaningful upgrade on the token, and they're sort of playable on their own. Sometimes they're not. But...
Most of them are close.
All right, I'll start with some lands.
Yeah, let's start with that.
Actually, a lot of lands.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of lands make tokens. So Den of the Bugbear stands out right away. This is a fantastic land, just like defining card and Pioneer. For each of these cards, we have to read super carefully and like figure out
what happens to the token.
Yeah, so if I understand Den of the Bugbear correctly, when you fire it up, you will get a goblin token tapped and attacking.
Yeah.
Jinnie Fay will replace that goblin with a cat or dog, but it will be tapped and attacking.
Yes.
So that's actually pretty good.
Yeah. That's giving the dog 0 haste in most scenarios.
Similarly, I really like the red channel land, Sokenzan, Crucible of Defiance. It costs 4 to channel it. You get 2 colorless spirit tokens, then they separately gain haste. So like we talked about with Jinnie Fay, you'll channel it, make 2 cats or dogs, then they will gain haste. And I think that's actually pretty good. Jinnie is a legend, so they'll reduce the cost on your Sokenzan.
Yeah. So you're gonna have 3 mana, 6 power with haste, which is pretty insane.
That's the kind of thing that like you want to have in the deck, but you don't want to pay too high of a deck building cost to play like Raise the Alarm effects. So like if you can get that out of your mana base, that'll be amazing. And I'm imagining a deck with like Ren and 6, Ragavans, like a bunch of legends, so that I can actually channel this for like 3 or 2 and just do it a bunch of times.
He's slowly pulling everybody into Bard class. He keeps saying Bard class words, Ren and 6, Legends, Ragavan.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. What about like Colony Garden? You mentioned that, or Gingerbread Cabin.
Gingerbread Cabin alongside its close cousin Dwarven Mine are also pretty amazing, because if you play a Jinnie Fay on turn 4, you can have like play your Jinnie Fay, fetch, get a 3/1, and then you can play what's the next card to come. So I'm gonna hold spoilers for a second, because I think it's probably one of the most fun cards with Jinnie Fay. With that spare mana.
What, the Bartered Cow?
No,
no, not the Bartered Cow.
Not the Bartered Cow. It's never the Bartered Cow. Mugak is a relic of the past, but it was such a good name. Mugak was such a good name to the Fistill Troll King deck. It was the best part about the deck, actually.
Well, I put Bartered Cow here with the lands just because I wanted to remind you that it exists.
And we're never gonna cast it, so...
Right, but like let's say you were working with Underworld Cookbook, which is a great way to make a token every turn.
All of a sudden you get 2 tokens.
If you had a bunch of effects like that in the deck, yeah, Bartered Cow gives you an extra cat or dog now, so might be worth a look.
Exactly. And then we have a card that seems borderline unplayable nowadays, but works amazingly well with Jinnie Fay, which is Devastating Summons.
Okay. What's going on here?
So Devastating Summons reads, it's a 1 red mana. Is it an instant or a sorcery? I'm gonna guess a sorcery.
Sorcery.
Yeah, sorcery. As an additional cost, sacrifice any number of lands, and you get 2 XX elemental creature tokens, where X is the amount of lands you sacrificed. And then those tokens gain haste. So as we said before, the fact that those tokens gain haste afterwards means whatever you create with Jinnie Fay is gonna have haste. And you can just pay 1 red mana, sacrifice nothing, and Jinnie Fay is gonna transform those 0/0 elementals into 3/1 dogs or 2/2 cats that are gonna get haste. So
just a quick correction, Devastating Summons does not give haste.
Oh.
You may be thinking of like Goblin Bushwhacker, because that's often paired with Devastating Summons
right.
in order to give them haste. But you could do that. I mean, you could play these together with Jinnie Fay in the deck.
Yeah, but the important thing is, if you go, like, for example, you want to make sure you're going to get some value out of Jinnie Fay the turn it resolves. If you're playing like a Dwarven mana base, which is maybe too utopical, you can go Jinnie Fay, fetch land, Devastating Summons, get 3 dogs. So for 4 mana, you're getting 12 power on the board.
Yeah, and if you need the haste, I mean, the cats do have haste. If you choose cats, you get haste.
You could get 9 power and get in for 6.
Devastating Summons, I mean, there are not that many cards that make 2 tokens for 1 mana, but we already mentioned 2 of them, Devastating Summons and Hard Evidence. Hard Evidence is probably just like the better of the 2.
Yeah.
Just because when you don't have Jinnie Fay, it's like a plausible card. But it's just so cool that like Jinnie Fay doesn't care what the original token was, right? Like a clue and a crab becomes 2
to those. Exactly. I think that's the most intriguing part, because if it required human tokens or such, this would be such a much more boring card, because the avenues to success would be so fewer. But here we have a million possibilities in what are those tokens gonna be.
Other 1-drops, Gilded Goose stands out right away, right? That brings along a food, so much like Thraben Inspector or Voldaren Epicure, you're gonna get that immediate bonus creature, and then Gilded Goose for just 2 mana can make another food, which becomes actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, 2 mana make a 3/1. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Any love for Kuldotha Rebirth, or is that like a bridge too far?
I think we just require too much setup when we get into Kuldotha, right? Unless, actually not that much, because Kuldotha Rebirth works amazingly well with Voldaren Epicure and Thraben Inspector, which also work amazingly good with Jinnie Fay, which all work pretty well with Loxodon something.
Yeah, Venerated Loxodon, yeah. I'm also interested in like Flayer Husk. I mean, and that's not great, but that's living weapon, so you will get either a 3/3 haste or a 4/2 for just 1 mana. Inquisitive Puppet's kind of intriguing. It exiles itself to get a 1/1, but you can like do that whenever you want. There's some weird stuff you can do. I think more likely we're going to be talking about Ragavans and cookbooks and such.
I think that's gonna be, Witch's Oven, I looked into it, but it's not that good, because Witch's Oven, what it does is it gives protection to your creatures, to your cats and dogs, because whenever they would die, you just sacrifice to get another one.
That's good. That's really good. Right, so Witch's Oven, tap, sacrifice a creature, get a food, becomes tap, sacrifice a creature, get a cat or a dog. So sack a dog, get a dog.
Unless you have a way to pump those dogs, and then you're doubling with every tap. Oh. Okay. Oh no, it's toughness, right?
No.
It's toughness, right? You're gonna ruin my dreams like this?
You need to sacrifice a creature, toughness 4 or greater
No,
to get
my
2.
dreams. No, I hate it.
Well, imagine you had like 2 Regal Caracals in play that give your cats +1/+1.
Imagine you have 2 Leylands of the Meek.
What if you're playing Coat of Arms, and then you're playing Scurry Oak for like an infinite combo?
Oh, yes.
So that every time you get a new token, it causes the Scurry Oak to evolve again and make another token. And the Coat of Arms is pumping them, so it just keeps on happening.
Okay. Now we're getting to the deep dreams.
Witch's Oven. We're on Witch's Oven, sorry. Yeah, I mean, the awkward thing about Witch's Oven is that
you can't make the cat combo.
You would typically pair that with Cauldron Familiar, right?
Yeah, and if you have Jinnie Fay, that combo doesn't work.
Yeah, you'll run out of food at a certain point if you have Jinnie Fay replacing all of your food generation with cat generation. But it's optional, right? If you really need the food back, you don't have to use Jinnie Fay.
Yeah. So maybe Witch's Oven plus cat deserve the spot in the deck as a plan, as a way of having 2 plans, right? You either have the cat plan, or you have the Jinnie Fay plan with the oven. You can decide which is better on its own.
To round out the 1-drops, Ragavan making treasures, Underworld Cookbook making food, Thraben Inspector, Voldaren Epicure. We've mentioned these before because these are probably the absolute best cards to just like start a good Jinnie Fay deck.
Yeah.
Alright, moving on to 2 mana.
Well, we discussed a few seconds ago Wave Sifter, which is 2 mana, make 2 tokens, or in the late game it's actually quite amazing if you just hardcast it like a 5 mana 3/2 that brings in 2 additional tokens, 2 additional bodies, can be pretty amazing.
I love that. I mean, that sounds great for like grinding, although that's always the dream. It never plays out that way.
It never plays out that way. But that's a dream. Then we have one of my favorite cards, which is Lonis.
Yeah, the Cryptozoologist. So whenever another creature, non-token creature unfortunately, enters the battlefield, you investigate with Jinnie Fay. Instead of just getting a clue, you can get a snazzy new cat or dog. And what's so great is like that's the immediate trigger. That's what Jinnie Fay by herself does not have that immediate value. So we'd love to find some way to essentially get an ETB trigger out of Jinnie Fay.
Yeah.
And Lonis can do that. Other creatures that can do that, Elvish Warmaster, Gala Greeters. Actually, Gala Greeters is cute because like you'll get like an extra trigger if you just choose the treasure the first time.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I think likely what I love about Lonis is how well it works with the other 1-drops. Like if you can just go with the Thraven Inspector and the Voldaren Epicure, right? Like it goes really off the handle really fast. Like just Lonis plus Thraven make 2 clues, or Lonis plus Voldaren Epicure, a clue and a blood, and if you have the Jinnie just getting double tokens, that is just an instant board.
Lonis making a clue works with Academy Manufacturer, so like there's starting to get like a little more density on these synergies. Yeah, I can see that coming together. All right, we already mentioned Jadar, the Ghoulcaller of Nephalia, everyone's favorite. I kind of like Magda Brazen Outlaw. I know that card's not great, but that gives you, again, the option to like immediately get something when you attack with a Magda.
Yeah, thing is, Magda never attacks.
No?
She doesn't make it.
Well, we've got a Springleaf Drum in play. We've got Magda, we've got Amara,
okay,
like Soul of the Accord or whatever to like tap these and get tokens.
And we just try to double our tap tokens, and we just are actually playing a free Flame Painter deck with mech.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, see, we're doing it. We're brewing this live.
It's a deck within a deck. It's a donut hole inside the donut hole.
God, what?
Never seen that movie?
What movie is this?
Knives Out?
I don't remember that line. I've seen it, but I don't remember that line.
It's a donut hole inside the donut hole. It's a donut inside the hole.
Not ringing any bells. Maybe you're not saying it right. Say it again.
I was looking for a hole inside the donut hole, but it wasn't. It was a donut inside the hole. The best part about that movie is him going insane about donut holes while trying to crack the case. I can't believe it.
Oh boy.
People are going to realize that's what I was talking about. This is your mistake.
Alright, there's also a bunch of cards for 2 mana that make 2 tokens, right? Raise the Alarm is what we mentioned. The best of this category is probably Verdant Command.
Yeah.
Just because you get the 2 tokens plus something else.
I mean, that something else can range from mediocre to really relevant. It's like 2 tokens and 3 life, 2 tokens and exile a card from a graveyard, and 2 tokens and counter loyalty ability from a planeswalker.
Unfortunately, Verdant Command says create 2 tapped squirrel tokens, so you will get 2 tapped cats or dogs.
Yeah.
Because that's that part is not replaced. Yeah, so the option to like immediately attack with 2/2 haste cats is not available for Verdant Command, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes having the versatility of exiling like a Croxa or, I don't know, countering a Lily Plus or something like that can be more than relevant.
Moving on to 3 mana, Academy Manufacturer stands out right away.
Yeah.
A card you would likely have in a deck with these other cards, and we talked about replacement effects. You can make it work the way you want.
Yeah, just get triple creatures with every trigger.
Yeah. Adeline's pretty good. Adeline would let you, go to combat, immediately attack, and get something. The thing you get will be attacking.
Mm-hmm. I think it's still bagged in MTGO, worth mentioning. Adeline cannot attack a Planeswalkers, the token. Just leaving that out there for everybody to know.
Chatterfang, we already mentioned, similar to Academy Manufacturer, that increases your token output, so you just stack those the way you want, although it's not technically using the stack, but make sure it happens the way you want and you'll get a whole boatload of cats and dogs. What about Chandra, Acolyte of Flame?
That's like the aggro dream, right? Get 6 damage in and they sacrifice. It's like a lightning ball with every activation.
So her 0 says create 2 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste. So we're going to get 2 cats or dogs in this case, because the cats, are smaller. We don't need their haste. 2 dogs, then they gain haste, sacrifice them at the next end step. So you still have to sacrifice them. That part is not replaced, but it's still so much damage.
That gets really big really fast. Chatterfang works as a less bad on its own, but higher floor, lower ceiling Academy Manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Like it instead of giving you 3 times the tokens, it gives you double the tokens at the expense of being a 3/3 on its own. That whenever you are working with any sort of token, it will also double it. Like playing Chatterfang fairly is a lot easier than playing Academy Manufacturer fairly.
I'll mention Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. This card is decent. You know, we see it sometimes in Red Green Transmogrify and Pioneer. Gives you a token on it, a +1, and the option to like -2 to buff your team. So you might put Nissa and Jinnie Fay together if you were in a lower powered format.
I'm gonna try that in Modern, but because I love Nissa. It was my first place. It was my first place Walker. I cannot love her.
I didn't know it was your first Planeswalker.
I think it might have been the first card I actually like got a playset.
Okay.
Pretty likely.
Well, Nostalgia Trip. The card you should be playing instead of Nissa is probably Seasoned Pyromancer. This is just one of the good cards, much like Ragavan. A good card that makes tokens.
Exactly.
So going back to that initial question of like, do you just want to build a good deck that happens to work with Jinnie, or do we want to build a dedicated Jinnie deck?
Exactly. Followed by that, we have like on the same side Heroic Reinforcements, which is only amazing with Jinnie and an unplayable draft card without her.
Is it unplayable? I mean, this card is actually like... It's not that bad, is it? Heroic Reinforcements?
Make 2 1/1s, keep them haste, everything gets +1/+1.
Your entire team gets +1/+1 in haste, so imagine you had like that Dwarven Mine we were talking about.
And the Travel Inspector, Sunday, Volran Epicure, like rushing in.
Okay.
I think the problem with Heroic is we're not playing an aggro enough of a deck for like it to be a good finisher in its own.
The decks that like tend to want Heroic Reinforcements usually don't want 4-mana cards that are like so conditional.
Exactly.
But it does a lot of damage. It's like better than it looks.
It does a lot of damage.
Any love for Payless Plunderer, the EDH combo star?
I think it's one of the most interesting ideas. The fact it can just go infinite alongside Jinnie Fay and any sacrifice outlet is at least worth the worth the look, or at least the testing, right? Pitiless Planting and Jinnie Fay, both creatures that are really easy to find via any creature tutor, which we have a million in the format, like Batterskull. And then you're just missing any payoff that can sacrifice in order to get infinite sacrifice. I think it's at least worth the look. It will also be really fun to play this alongside another. Maybe you just play this in like a sort of 2-card Monty with Goblin Bombardment, Altar, 4 Safi, 4 Rallier, 4 Pitiless Plunder, and 4 Jinnie. Just 2 all-in creature combos.
Pitiless Plunderer is an uncommon from Rivals of Ixalan, 3 in a black, human pirate. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get a treasure. And because it doesn't say another non-token creature, it just says whenever another creature, there's all kinds of infinite loops available.
Yeah.
And if you happen to play this Ixalan block draft and just like have a bunch of bulk sitting around, go look for these. They're expensive.
They're like 12
People
bucks.
love these in EDH. Yeah.
They're worth a lot.
So instead of getting a treasure when a creature dies, we'll just get another creature when a creature dies.
And just go infinite with that.
Might be worth trying. The last card I have marked, I think this is so cute.
I don't know this card, which is shocking, because I tend to know cards at least.
You don't know Endrixar, Master Breeder?
I would have remembered a card with the Master Breeder title.
Endrixar, Master Breeder, who's in all of the flavor text from Fallen Empires, which was, I think, the first set that I played. That was the current set when I started playing Magic. Endrixar, Master Breeder, 4 in a black, 2/2 human wizard. It's a legend. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create X 1/1 black Thrall creature tokens, where X is the mana value of the spell you cast. So you get a bunch of Thralls whenever you cast a creature. And then Endrick says, whenever you control 7 or more Thralls, you have to sacrifice Endrick, because the Thralls got out of control. Which is kind of like the running gag in all the Fallen Empires flavor text. Yeah, this is a very funny story, the sad tale of Endrixar. With Jinnie Fay, you know, if only they'd had partnered up back in the day, right? Like she could just convert those Thralls into cats and dogs, and Endrick can just keep spitting out Thralls to his heart's content.
Just get cats and more cats and more cats. Cats will never overrun you. Thralls will.
If there were any two cards I could just like slap a partner onto them, I would want it to be Endrick and Jinnie Fay. Like, it's so sad to me that you can't play Endrick in a Jinnie Fay deck
And vice
you can't play
versa.
Jinnie Fay in an Endrick deck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They're made for each other.
they're the perfect match.
All right, enough nonsense. If you want to see the full list, this is in our show outline, which is available to all of our patrons as a little extra content. But enough of that nonsense. Let's actually look at some lists. Starting with established lists, there are almost none to speak of.
There's one.
There's one. 0 published 5.0s in Pioneer, 1 5.0 in Modern. So as much as we love Jinnie Fay, like, we're in uncharted territory here.
I mean, we have this 5.0, and besides that, it's up to us to add any other.
So tell us about the only 5.0 with Jinnie Fay.
So, the only 5.0 has been by MerynMoon, a content creator that's known for playing off-meta or tier 2 decks, and clearly this is something right down her alley. So we are featuring a deck that has 4 Relics of the Past in the form of Path to Exile, 4 Gather the Townsfolk, 4 Raise the Alarm, 4 Verdant Command, 4 Lingering Souls, 4 Spectral Possession, 4 Legion Standing, 4 Intangible Virtue, 4 Venerated Loxodon, and 3 Jinnie Fay. This deck is nothing if not square in the fact that it plays every single 2/1/1 token creator in the whole game. Okay, not every single one, every single playable one. Not even playable. Gather Townsfolk is not playable, but it goes to the extent of finding the closest thing to playable it can.
I'm impressed by the mana base here. Like, I did not think you could play Spectral Procession and Jinnie Fay in the same deck. But this deck does it.
You can if you dream enough.
Spectral Procession is like 2 or white 3 times. So like white cast it, but white does not cast Jinnie Fay. You need some weird stuff. You need, like, there's an Indotha Triome here in the mana base.
I think you can make the mana base work because Jinnie Fay is white, green. So as long as all your lands tap for white, you can even afford to have a plains and be safe. The one thing I don't like about this decklist is the fact that it has an Overgrown Tomb over a Godless Shrine.
There's both. There's one of each.
Okay, I would just stream away the Overgrown Tomb. I think 2 black sources is enough.
Well, what if I need to, like, get my black to flashback Lingering Souls and also prepare myself for Jinnie Fay, which needs 2 green?
I mean, unless you have your planes on board, every single other land should tap for the double green.
Well, no, but every land taps for white. We already...
Yeah, but all the lands besides the forest and the Godless Shrine tap for white. Sorry, another lands besides the plains and the Godless Shrine tap for green. So everything taps for both white or green except 3 or 4 lands. Which is the most important part, I think.
So cards that I like here, Venerated Loxodon is actually quite good. Legion's Landing is great.
Intangible Virtue is essential in any token generating strategy. +1/+1 and Vigilance is an insane power for only 2 mana.
Yeah, that works so well with the Convoke mechanic of Venerated Loxodon, unless you swing in the air and then still use them to cast the Loxodon.
Legion's Landing has always been an all-star of this sort of deck. 1 mana, get a token that then becomes a token generator that ramps you in mono white.
Yeah, imagine if you're just like cranking out cats and dogs at 3 mana per activation.
Exactly.
Like, that's pretty good.
Spectral Possession has a really good trade. Like, it has always been the most efficient token producer in the game, Spectral Possession, as long as you can pay for it.
So we see what this deck is trying to do, right? It's like very straightforward, but is this the correct way to finish the list? Is this the only way to do it? I don't think this is the only way you can go, right? So Emma, you've got an alternate build here.
Yeah, so since the mana is almost nothing, I went ahead and added a playset of a card I just love, and it's probably a bad idea, but that won't stop me, which is Leyline of the Meek. Leyline of the Meek from the first, I think the first cycle of Leylines. Maybe the second one. I think it's the first. Creature tokens get +1/+1. So, why am I playing just a terrible card? Because I need additional ways to justify my devastating summons. Maybe it should just be the White Force, now that I think about it, because I forgot that card existed.
I mean, you could play both. That way the White Force can pitch a Leyline of the Meek that you draw later in the game.
You just play 12 Maybe playing 12 pump enchantments is not insanity. But then this gives you devastating summons, means devastating summons with a Leyline of the Meek or Intentional Virtue is a 1-mana raise the alarm, right?
It is.
So it gives you the possibility of playing this card in a fair way even when you don't have the Jinnie Fay. And when you have the Jinnie Fay, it's just insane.
You know, if I were playing a lot of Leyline the Meek, I would almost want to play Springjack Shepherd, like instead of Elspeth. Is that crazy? For my devotion to white, my chroma to white, I should say.
Your
I
chroma?
0/1 goats. And like I'll have a Legion's Landing in play, I'll have a Force of Virtue, maybe a Leyline of the Meek.
That's a dream.
Maybe I'll have a Border Post.
A relic of the past, Springjack Shepherd. When devotion didn't exist and we had chroma.
As much as I like devastating summons with Jinnie Fay, like if all it's doing is creating 2 cats and dogs, like any number of cards can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit worried that devastating summons doesn't have any other synergies. Like it's not here with Bushwhacker, it's not here with Seagate Stormcaller, which are like a little more powerful.
And if not, I think we can just leave the deck as Meryn did. I think it only requires a few changes to the mana base. And I think to some of the numbers, I don't think Path to Exile is a playable modern card. I would rather just splash red to play a Bolt or something. I don't think Gather the Townsfolk is a modern playable card. So you gotta try and find some replacements in there.
And if you have 5 life or less, though, you gather, like, assemble the townsfolk of cats and dogs. It's a town full of dogs.
Imagine you top like that, and all of a sudden you are swinging for 10. But never saw it coming. There's a light behind you, Dan.
Is this Death Shadow?
There's a light behind you getting brighter and brighter. You have been overtaken by the light.
The sun is setting behind me right now. It's Friday evening, it's a golden evening, and like these ideas are just so powerful, so radiant. It's the perfect time to like propose the next deck. I mean, if I was gonna build a deck from scratch, right?
Show us the inspiration the light has given you.
If I was gonna build a Jinnie Fay deck from scratch, I would probably start with Underworld Cookbook, Ragavan, and like maybe Gilded Goose, let's say. Right?
Okay.
So I would be in Modern because I need Ragavan and Cookbook, right? Like I just need those cards.
Yeah.
I get to play Academy Manufacturer because all 3 of those cards I mentioned, Goose, Ragavan, and Cookbook, work with Manufacturer. I'm going to play Asmo alongside Cookbook. The other card I'm going to play is Rocco Cabaretti Caterer.
Such a good card.
I'm so glad you support me on this. Like,
I will always.
I'm like nervous as I say this.
No, I will always support the Rocco dream. Like you got me on Rocco.
I don't have to like defend Rocco,
No.
but like it might just be terrible.
No, don't worry. We can both decide that together. We're in the same boat.
People in our Discord who have tried Rocco have warned me that it's not very good.
I don't care. I will have to.
Nevertheless,
I'm gonna fight that battle and lose on my own.
Okay, what is Rocco? It's the uncommon legend from the Cabaretti Guild. X, red, green, white, 3/1 elf druid. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it... Oh, actually, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't work with Coco.
If you cast it, you get to you get to search for a creature mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So you can choose X equals 0. That's kind of cute, and that is just enough. 0 is just enough to get Asmora Nomartica Dice into Kaldakar.
Good.
Who we are already playing because of the cookbook. So you get the chef and the caterer. Perfect kitchen. Beat Bobby Flay. I don't know what's going on here. Some kind of cook-off show.
And then you get the guests. Jinnie Fay's the guests.
And then you get the cats. Right, so my initial thought, which actually doesn't work now that I'm looking at this, is that because I'm already playing Academy Manufacturer, Rocco, and Jinnie Fay, that's a bunch of 3-drops that work with Collected Company, so I should play 4 Collected Company. The fact that Rocco does not work with Company is giving me a little bit of pause. But to round up my 3-drop slot, I would also play a couple Seasoned Pyromancer, a Chatterfang, and maybe I just need to like change the numbers and not play so many Roccos. I still want some Roccos, but maybe I don't need 4.
Or maybe not for Collected Company.
You gotta play 4. If you're playing any company, you gotta play 4 company.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and you're playing Seasoned Pyromancer, I really like Company. Just imagine Company hit Jinnie Fay plus Seasoned Pyro on your opponent's end step, make an instant huge board. It's like 11 power.
So I have like a few slots left in the deck. Right now I've penciled in 2 Voldaren Epicure to give me a little more discard outlets to cast Asmo, and 2 Prosperous Innkeeper, which is just like an okay card, right? It brings a treasure, which can be a cat or a dog, or works with Manufacturer. I don't have a ton of interaction. I basically just have the Asmos for that. Question marks in my head are like, do I need more interaction? Like, should I be trying to find that in the mana base? Like, most cookbook decks are Urza Saga's decks, and like that's not the best land to play with cards like Jinnie Fay and Rocco. So I'm not sure if like I should be doing Urza Saga in like a minor Saga package or not. Similarly, if I'm doing cookbook, like, do I want Oval Chase Daredevil? It's such a good card with cookbook, but
it's so bad without it.
It's bad without it, and with Jinnie in play, you actually lose that synergy because you're no longer getting artifact tokens. You're getting cats and dogs, which are not artifacts.
Just when the interactions cancel other interactions, it gets you in such a weird spot.
Yeah, this probably just like won't come up, right? Like if it comes up, you're probably fine. But yeah, like there's options. Just like finishing out the last slots, I noted that like one way you could build a mana if you didn't want Urza Saga is you could play Gingerbread Cabins. You could just play all forests, and then you might be incentivized to play Wrenn and 6 instead of Prosperous Innkeeper, for example. You could splash, like maybe you feel like you have enough confidence to splash blue, then you can play Lonis Cryptozoologist to go with your manufacturers. Maybe you want Street Wraiths. Maybe if you don't trust Oval Chase Daredevil, you play Squee Goblin Nabob, the classic, right? I'm not sure.
You can't say no to Lonis. Besides, if we play enough Lonis, we can convince ourselves it's good, and then playing with Getaway Car and Menmite.
All right. Well, we are going to have that Getaway Car week, the one we talked about.
We can convince ourselves that's playable. Even if we don't care. Even if I don't think so, I can convince myself. Besides, I just love Lonis. Make everything a Thriving Inspector. Excellent.
So you bought a Lonis deck, right? Tell me about your build.
So I have a pretty similar build. Instead of Collected Company, I have an Earth to get back my stuff. I have 4 Chatterfang, 4 Jinnie, 4 Academy Manufacturer, 4 Lonis, 4 Asmo, 4 Ether Vials to help both as a way to curve into my 3 drops plus a way to play Asmo, and 4 cookbooks.
It's a similar style of deck, but like you're actually in Sultai colors where I was in Naya colors. So like very, very different colors.
Yeah, I'm trying to go hard into an Earth plus cookbook helping me. Vial, I think it's going to be really useful. The fact you can go through one Vial Asmo is huge.
I didn't really think about the Unearthed Cookbook interaction, right? Like, so you have 2 different ways to like cheat in a really valuable creature.
Yeah.
Turn 1, Vial, Slam, Asmo. Turn 1, Cookbook, discard a 3-drop, unearth it on turn 2.
Exactly.
And then like maybe Jinnie Fay is in play on turn 2, and that's actually a lot more exciting.
No, and you have the insane hands, like for example, go in turn 1 in Cookbook and step discard Manufacturer, turn 2, unearth the Manufacturer, and just activate the Cookbook on your opponent's step and start going off. I have seen Spike going stuff like turn 1 Cookbook into turn 2 Manufacturer, play Asmo with the black mana, get a second Cookbook, use the treasure, use the Cookbook, discard the Cookbook, discard again, and just. By the end of the second turn, they have an Asmo, a Manufacturer, 2 clues, 2 foods, and a treasure.
So you feel like this is enough ways to cast Asmo? I mean, you got 4 Asmos here, 4 Cookbook, 4 Vial, but you don't have any other discard outlets.
Unearth cycles.
No, that's true. Okay.
Maybe it's a number of Street Wraiths as well, maybe 1 or 2 extra modes, but I think this is borderline enough. Maybe 2 Rockos.
It's like, do you want like Ledger Shredder just because it's like a decent card that's a discard outlet?
I'm never playing Ledger Shredder without Mishra's Bubble, and I don't think this is a Mishra's Bubble deck. Ledger requires Mishra's Bubble almost definitely. At least in Modern.
And are you confident in Chatterfang? You got 4 here.
I'm confident in Chatterfang because of how it allows you to get 1/1s out of cookbooks and stuff like that, right? The power of Chatterfang is the fact you get 1/1s always. It always plays to the board.
There is some like infinite combo with Chatterfang, right?
There's a few infinite combos with Chatterfang. None that I can. There was one which was which was it? So you had Manufacturer, Chatterfang, Oven, Manufacturer, Chatterfang, Oven, sacrificing creatures. It was using Chatterfang's ability with the treasures. Lonis, I think.
Huh. I can't think of it right now. It was like pretty convoluted, but it was using cards that would already be in the deck.
It required Lonis, Chatterfang, Manufacturer plus an extra, I think. And it allowed you to just get infinite. You need to sacrifice them for some reason, and I can't remember why, because I remember the black ability in Chatterfang being relevant. Also, Chatterfang has Forest Walk for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing against another Jinnie Fay deck, they're going to have forests. So. This is the new meta for this month. We're just warning you now. Get ready.
Don't play forests. Beware.
All right. So we leave Modern briefly.
Yeah. Take a look at Pioneer.
Pioneer, lower powered format where Jinnie Fay maybe has an easier time making an impact. You won't have some of these exhilarating token makers like Cookbook and Ragavan, but you can maybe build something playable.
I mean, it's not as amazing, but...
Yeah, so David gave us 2 lists to think about. The first one is a basic red-green token midrange. 4 Jasper Sentinel, 3 Magda Brazen Outlaw. So that's that Springleaf Drum combo. Jasper Sentinel, 1/2 reach, I think. For a green, you can tap another creature and itself to make a mana.
Yeah.
So that's a nice interaction from standard, Jasper plus Magda. 4 Prosperous Innkeeper, that's a little ramp card to our powerful 4-drops, and also works with Jinnie. 4 Bonecrusher Giants, just to be a decent card. 2 Courier's Briefcase, similar to Prosperous Innkeeper. How do we win the game? Well, you're going to need some power. There's 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, 4 Asika's Chariot. Interesting thing about those is that they make 2/2 tokens.
Yeah.
And like, Jinnie does not work super great with that. Upgrading a Fable of the Mirror Breaker token into a cat or dog is not even an upgrade necessarily, right?
It's almost a downgrade.
Yeah, but it's optional, right? So you can just keep the goblin token, and then whenever that attacks, it gives you a treasure, which becomes a cat or a dog. So like that's nice.
P and Kiran, though, those are 1/1s.
Yeah, P and Kieran. There's actually 2 copies of Jaxus the Troublemaker. This is a really interesting card. It has Blitz for 1 and a red.
And it's amazing with Chariot.
So the interaction here, let me just make sure I understand this. 3 and a red for a 2/3 Legend Human Warrior, Blitz for 2. Red, tap, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate as a sorcery. So with Jinnie in play, I activate Jaxus. I create a token that is actually not a copy of another creature I control. It's just a cat or a dog if I want it.
Yeah.
Then that's going to gain haste. It's going to gain the sacrifice, death clause, etc., etc.
But with Chariot, what you can do is activate the Chariot, Jaxus, copy the Chariot, attack, and because it's a token, the token that's gonna die on end step dies, you get to draw a card, and you keep the new one. So you get 6 tokens out of the deal.
Yeah, similar to that Saheeli Rai copying Chariot interaction.
This exact same interaction, but you also draw a card with the Jaxus because the one with Blitz dies.
Yeah, but you did discard a card, so it's not like all profit. But it's interesting. Yeah, that's cute, actually. That might come up. 1 Goldspan Dragon, 1 Bootlegger Stash, and 1 Embercleave. I mean, Goldspan and Bootlegger Stash, that's a lot of cats and dogs if you can pull those off. I think Goldspan might just be like actually great.
The thing with Bootleggers is the fact you can get it with Magda. If you ever get up to 5 treasures...
I suppose. So then you can just get the Bootlegger Stash. If you have Jinnie in play, you just make a bunch of haste cats immediately.
Yeah.
That's kind of cute.
That's kind of cute. Could be nice.
I was thinking, like, if I were in a modern deck with Gingerbread Cabin and Shape Anew, like, what's the best artifact I can get? Maybe Bootlegger Stash is the best artifact I can get.
Yeah. I think it's always well a Citadel, though.
Well, but I want that synergy with Jinnie Fay.
I want that value.
Last deck list, again in Pioneer. Green and white tokens. So similar concept to what we were discussing with the modern version. In Pioneer, you don't have quite enough token makers, so you're kind of left playing additional stuff that isn't actually a token maker. 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Raise the Alarm, 4 Join the Dance. This makes 2 tokens at sorcery speed, flashback for 5, so that's actually kind of interesting. 4 Nissa, 4 Jinnie Fay. Excuse me. 4 Nissa, 3 Jinnie Fay, 3 Wedding Announcement, 4 Venerated Loxodon, 3 Conclave Tribunal, 1 Secure the Wastes, 1 Amara Soul of the Accord, 1 Legion's Landing, 2 Conclave Mentor. I kind of like Conclave Mentor here. I didn't understand it at first. This is the green-white Winding Constrictor Hardened Scales effect. But you have both Venerated Loxodon and Nissa's -2 to potentially put a bunch of counters on your team.
I think that's... If you're already putting counters in many creatures, you tend to be ahead.
Yeah, but like they're not dead till they're dead, so...
Yeah. Nissa Wisp of Zendikar is the best card, though.
Yeah. The note we have here is, turn 1 elf is powerful, Wedding Announcement is bad, but maybe we can make it okay. Nissa is the best card here by a mile. So, ominous. Perhaps, for this thing.
Kind of ominous. But, I mean, anything that has Nissa Wisp of Zendikar makes me happy, so I cannot complain about that. But, Wedding Announcement, I just can't get my hands on that card ever. Like, whenever I say Wedding Announcement, I'm like, really? Are we sure about this? Should we do this?
It's a card that's like good enough for Standard and almost okay in some situations in Pioneer and Historic. So it has like pedigree in like Mythic Championships, Pro Tours, but it hasn't quite broken into Pioneer in a convincing way yet. We've seen it in like mid-range piles. I think we had a week on it actually. But I think David is right to be cautious.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we're only scratching the surface right now. I mean, between the green-white dedicated token decks, the food engine decks, right, we haven't even talked about like classic food with Witch's Oven. I think that would be another option to explore.
Yeah. Or the combos with Pitiless Plunder.
Yeah, the Pitiless Plunderer combo. I'm intrigued by Bard class. I know that Kilgore Trout, who proposed this card, has been playing it to good success in Glimpse of Tomorrow. That's like another deck that has a powerful A plan that wouldn't mind having a Jinnie in play. I don't know like whether Jinnie actually upgrades the deck or if it's just like a fun thing you can do, but he's been sending some spectacular screenshots on the Discord.
Yes.
The token space is vast, and we're definitely going to need the full month to make sense of what exactly Jinnie can do.
And find the best plans of action for it. Are we just going to pump up a lot of 1/1s and make them bigger, or are we just hoping our clues are good dogs?
All right, I think that's probably where we should leave it for now. What do you think, Emmy?
I think so. I think we had enough ideas for a day and a lot to work with for the next few weeks alongside the Serum Visions gang.
And hopefully alongside all of you, if you're following along and you have like the perfect token idea, please let us know exactly. Get at us. We are on Twitter at FaithlessMTG. And if you want to come jump in the Discord, get in on the action and come brew with us, you can find that at our Patreon. We would love to have you there.
Yeah, exactly. So have a nice night, everybody. Bye!
Deck lists for this episode can be viewed at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And tune in next week for our testing results. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. If you like what we do, you can join our community at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.